Damien's hands tightened around the steering wheel, fingers locked with the kind of pressure that came from a promise buried so deep it never stopped breathing. Christmas Eve meant celebration for everyone else, but for him, it meant returning to the one place he had spent years trying to outrun. Every mile he drove pulled him closer to the weight he had carried since childhood, his unfinished vow, his unanswered history, the part of himself he had never forgiven. He had just left an event held in his honor, a night full of applause and faces pretending they understood him. They didn't. They knew the CEO. They didn't know the boy who grew up with nothing but a silent promise whispering in the back of his mind. That promise was the only reason he was here now, driving through a night that felt more like judgment than celebration. And as he approached the edge of the property he had sworn he would never return to, that old ache inside him sharpened. He was supposed to be stronger now. Untouchable. But the moment the orphanage came into view, something in him shifted, something old, familiar, and painful. The past didn't ask permission before it reached for him. Then his headlights cut across the front steps, and the world inside him stopped moving. A small figure sat curled against the doorway, still, alone, too small to be facing anything without help. Damien's breath hitched. The moment he saw her, something in him recognized the fear in her posture, the trembling in her shoulders, the way she hugged herself like she was holding on to the last bit of strength she had left. He hit the brakes harder than he meant to. His pulse surged. His heart hammered. His promise, the one he made as a boy in this very place, rose to the surface with every beat. He opened his door and stepped out, not thinking, not hesitating, just moving with the instinct of someone who had once been that child, alone and unseen. And the closer he got, the more he saw the truth in her posture. She wasn't just cold. She wasn't just scared. She was waiting for someone specific, someone she believed would come. Damien stopped right in front of her. And for the first time in years, he felt his entire world shift around a single moment. A little girl, alone, looking up at him through eyes full of fear and expectation. And he didn't yet know why, but she looked like she knew exactly who he was. Damien moved toward the little girl with a speed he didn't question. Instinct took over before thought did. He dropped to his knees right in front of her, unbuttoned his coat, and wrapped it around her trembling shoulders. The moment the warmth touched her, she looked up at him with eyes that felt far too old for someone so small. She didn't speak at first. Instead, she reached into her pocket with shaking fingers and pulled out a piece of paper so damaged it looked as though it had fought against every hardship she had faced. The edges were torn, the ink smudged, but the moment he unfolded it, he saw his name. Damien Locke. Seeing it written in that handwriting made something deep in him tighten. Before he could ask anything, her voice broke through the silence, thin, fragile, and carrying a weight no child should have to hold. My mom said, "You're the only one who can help us." The words hit him with a force he wasn't prepared for. His breath caught, and his heart stumbled in his chest. He looked at the girl again, really seeing her now, not just a frightened child, but someone who had been sent to him for a reason he didn't yet understand. "What's your name?" he asked gently. "Leah." Her name was soft, but it carried something familiar, something that tugged at a part of him he had buried years ago. He swallowed hard. "And your mom?" "Naomi. Naomi Blake." Her mother's name cracked something inside him wide open. Everything he had locked away, every memory, every moment he wished he could change, every word he never got to say, came rushing back in a single breath. Naomi. The girl who once protected him more fiercely than anyone ever had. Nothing in his life had prepared him for this. And yet, he knew this moment wasn't a coincidence. It was a call he had no choice but to answer. Leah didn't hesitate when he asked her to show him where her mother was. She simply slipped her small hand into his, trusting him completely, as though she had known him much longer than a single moment. He followed her through the building, every step tightening the pressure in his chest. Then he saw her. Naomi lay still, her body weakened, her breathing shallow. Her face, The same face that once held fierce determination, now carried exhaustion that ran far too deep. Damien froze for a moment, overwhelmed by the shock of seeing the girl who once saved him, reduced to this fragile, quiet stillness. He moved toward her, lowering himself beside the thin mattress. He didn't touch her at first. He just looked at her, absorbing every detail, fighting the disbelief that this was real. Then he reached for his phone, forcing steadiness into his voice as he called for help. He didn't raise his tone. He didn't panic. But every word he spoke carried urgency shaped by fear he refused to show. When the call ended, he stayed exactly where he was. He placed his hand over hers, feeling how cold and weak her fingers had become. He had once promised to protect her, and now she lay in front of him, suffering alone. He leaned closer, his voice low, steady, and filled with the kind of emotion he could never hide from her. "I promised once, and I will keep that promise. I'm here now." He didn't let go of her hand. He didn't move away. He stayed exactly where she needed him, refusing to leave her alone again. What other truths from their past will surface now that fate has forced them together again? Naomi's breathing shifted first, small, uneven, struggling to find its rhythm, and Damien felt it before he saw her eyes open. He leaned forward instinctively, his hand still wrapped around hers, holding on with a grip that came from 20 years of unfinished history. Her eyelids fluttered, heavy and hesitant, as though waking meant stepping into a world she wasn't sure she belonged in anymore. But then her gaze found him. Her entire expression changed, not in clarity, but in disbelief, like she was staring at a memory that shouldn't be standing in front of her. Her lips parted, barely able to shape the sound. "Damien. Damien Locke." The way she said his name cracked straight through him. It wasn't surprise. It wasn't relief. It was recognition pulled from the deepest part of who she used to be. He moved closer without thinking. "Yeah. It's me." She stared at him as though she needed a moment to understand that he wasn't a dream she would lose by blinking too hard. A long silence passed between them, one filled with everything they never said, everything they never finished. Then the memories came. They spoke softly, carefully, unraveling the weight they had carried alone. She remembered the boy who never had anyone to stand up for him. He remembered the girl who never let anyone hurt him. She remembered sharing the last of whatever she had. He remembered carving a bracelet with shaking hands, hoping it meant something to her. And then came the part of the story neither of them ever healed from. "How did you leave without saying goodbye?" she whispered. "I didn't know they were taking me," he answered. "No one told me anything." The pain in her eyes deepened, not in anger, but in the kind of hurt that sits quietly for years. Her voice trembled as she told him how life unfolded after that day, how she moved from one foster home to another, how the world had carved pieces out of her that she never got back. She told him about aging out alone. About working until her body broke under the weight of survival. About the illness she ignored because there was no one to catch her if she slowed down. Every word she spoke was another wound she had carried without asking for help. And Damien listened, fully, silently, because everything she endured had happened in the space he didn't get to protect. He didn't interrupt. He didn't explain. He just held her hand like he was making up for every year he wasn't there. Naomi's voice softened when she shifted the story toward Leah, as though talking about her daughter required a different kind of strength. She told him how she met someone who seemed promising, someone she believed would stay. She told him how she trusted the wrong man, how she hoped he would be different, how plans were made and unmade in the same breath. Then her jaw tensed. "He left before Leah was even born," she said quietly. "He walked away like we weren't even real." Damien felt something heavy settle in his chest. She continued talking, but now the pain behind her words ran deeper, because this wasn't just abandonment. It was responsibility left entirely in her hands. She told him how she worked every job she could find. Nights. Mornings. Back-to-back shifts with no rest. Laundry, cleaning, anything that kept Leah fed. And in trying to keep going, she ignored the symptoms that kept growing louder inside her. The exhaustion she couldn't shake. The pain she couldn't explain. The mornings she couldn't stand. I kept pushing, she whispered, because stopping meant losing everything. Then she lifted her gaze toward him, tired, honest, brave. Leah saw your face in a magazine. She said you looked like someone who knows how to help. The words hit him with a force he couldn't hide. Naomi swallowed, her voice smaller than before. I wasn't sure if I had the right to reach out to you. But I wrote your name on that note anyway, just once, just in case. She looked ashamed of that hope, as though asking for help was a burden she had no right to place on anyone. But Damien felt the truth settle in him like something he had been preparing for his entire life. Everything she survived. Every hardship she carried. Every moment she stood alone. All of it happened while he lived a life built on a promise he had never stopped remembering. He reached for her hand again, not out of obligation, but out of recognition. Because Naomi wasn't just a part of his past. She was the part he had never stopped waiting to find again. Damien didn't speak as Naomi finished sharing everything she had carried alone. He didn't interrupt, didn't rush her, didn't try to soften the truth she had finally allowed herself to say out loud. He just listened, fully, intensely, because every detail she revealed was a part of the life he wasn't there to protect. And when her voice weakened, when the weight of her memories finally settled into the silence between them, he reached for her hand with quiet certainty. His fingers closed around hers, steady and warm, honoring every piece of strength she had used to survive. He didn't look at her with pity. He looked at her with recognition, because she had endured more than anyone ever should, and she had done it without a single hand to hold. You've been carrying this for too long, he murmured, his voice low and grounded. You don't have to carry it alone anymore. Her breathing trembled, not from fear, but from something she had forgotten how to feel, relief. For years she had been the only one she could depend on. For years she had pushed through pain, isolation, and exhaustion because she had no choice. But now, for the first time in far too long, she wasn't fighting the world by herself. Her body softened, her shoulders loosened, and she let her weight sink into the moment. She let herself rest because she finally felt safe enough to do so. She didn't try to stay strong. She didn't try to hide how exhausted she was. She simply closed her eyes and allowed herself to breathe in the presence of someone who would not leave. And Damien stayed exactly where she needed him, close, steady, unshaken. Naomi has been found, but can she be saved in time? The calm didn't last long. It happened without warning. One moment Naomi was standing, trying to steady herself, and the next she folded forward in sharp, overwhelming pain. Her hand flew to her stomach as she struggled for breath, her body unable to hold itself upright. Damien caught her before gravity could pull her down, his voice breaking through instinct, urgency rising with every second. Naomi, hey, stay with me. Look at me. But she couldn't. Her face tightened, her breaths grew shallow, and the pain took over faster than she could fight it. Damien called for help immediately, his voice controlled but laced with a fear he refused to show her. Doctors rushed her into an endoscopy, moving with practiced speed, and Damien could do nothing but stand outside the doors that separated them, doors he wasn't allowed to break through, no matter how much he wanted to. Time stretched painfully until the doctor finally returned, his expression firm and heavy with truth. It's gastric cancer, he said. Late stage. But if we act quickly with surgery and an aggressive treatment plan, we still have options. The words should have shattered something in Damien. They should have slowed him, shaken him, stopped him. But nothing inside him wavered. He didn't flinch, didn't hesitate, didn't ask for time to think. He answered with the certainty of a man who refused to lose her again. Then we start today. His voice didn't crack. His resolve didn't break. He made the decision without fear, because no matter how difficult the path ahead was, he wasn't letting Naomi fight it alone. Not now. Not ever. Naomi tried to hide the worst parts of her illness the moment she realized what lay ahead. She avoided mirrors, avoided lingering in the doorway when Leah walked into the room, avoided letting anyone see how hard every movement had become. Shame crept into her posture, tightening her shoulders, lowering her eyes. She wasn't afraid of pain, she was afraid of looking fragile in front of the little girl who believed she could do anything. "I don't want her to remember me like this," she whispered one night, her voice thin with exhaustion. Damien didn't allow the silence to linger. "She doesn't see weakness," he said softly. "She sees her mom. That's enough." But Naomi shook her head, her pride and fear battling each other. "She doesn't deserve to carry this." "And you don't deserve to carry it alone," Damien answered, matching every protest with the same steady presence she could no longer push away. He took care of the things she couldn't force herself to do anymore, helped her stand, helped her sit, helped her breathe through the moments her body betrayed her. Naomi tried to stay strong, but the illness didn't bend to her determination. Some days she trembled when she reached for a glass of water. Some days her legs refused to support her. And one afternoon, she collapsed. The words should have shattered something in Damien. They should have slowed him, shaken him, stopped him. But nothing inside him wavered. He didn't flinch, didn't hesitate, didn't ask for time to think. He answered with the certainty of a man who refused to lose her again. "Then we start today." His voice didn't crack. His resolve didn't break. He made the decision without fear, because no matter how difficult the path ahead was, he wasn't letting Naomi fight it alone. Not now. Not ever. Naomi tried to hide the worst parts of her illness the moment she realized what lay ahead. She avoided mirrors, avoided lingering in the doorway when Leah walked into the room, avoided letting anyone see how hard every movement had become. Shame crept into her posture, tightening her shoulders, lowering her eyes. She wasn't afraid of pain, she was afraid of looking fragile in front of the little girl who believed she could do anything. "I don't want her to remember me like this," she whispered one night, her voice thin with exhaustion. Damien didn't allow the silence to linger. "She doesn't see weakness," he said softly. "She sees her mom. That's enough." But Naomi shook her head, her pride and fear battling each other. "She doesn't deserve to carry this." "And you don't deserve to carry it alone," Damien answered, matching every protest with the same steady presence she could no longer push away. He took care of the things she couldn't force herself to do anymore, helped her stand, helped her sit, helped her breathe through the moments her body betrayed her. Naomi tried to stay strong, but the illness didn't bend to her determination. Some days she trembled when she reached for a glass of water. Some days her legs refused to support her. And one afternoon, she collapsed. Leah adjusted quickly, leaning on him with the trust only a child can give so freely. One evening, while they were in the living room, Damien knelt in front of her with something small in his hand. A wooden bracelet, carefully carved, smooth at the edges, made with the same intention as the one he carved years ago for Naomi. He slipped it onto Leah's wrist. "What's this?" she asked, her voice curious and soft. "It's a promise," he said. She touched the bracelet gently, as if she already understood the weight behind those words. For the first time in a long time, Naomi watched someone give something to her daughter that didn't come with conditions, fear, or uncertainty. It came from a place of pure, unwavering devotion. And for the first time, she allowed herself to imagine a life where she didn't have to walk alone. The cabin offers safety, but outside forces are about to test everything. Miles didn't announce his arrival. He walked in with the confidence of someone who believed he understood Damien's life better than anyone else. His tone carried judgment long before his words did, and Damien felt the shift the moment his cousin opened his mouth. "You're risking everything," Miles said sharply. "Your company. Your reputation. Everything you built. For someone who—" He paused, lowering his voice even though the words cut just as deeply. "For someone who might not even make it through this." Damien's jaw tightened, but he didn't raise his voice. She needs help. That's all that matters. Miles scoffed. You're the CEO of a Fortune 500 company, Damien. And you're tying yourself to a time bomb. The phrase hit like a blade, but not to Damien. It hit Naomi. She had walked into the hallway at the worst possible moment, quiet enough that neither of them noticed her. Her expression froze as the words settled into her chest, reopening wounds she had spent years trying to bury. Every insecurity, every fear of being unwanted, every moment she had been left behind, Miles's words dragged them back to the surface. A time bomb. Something dangerous. Something guaranteed to ruin anyone who tried to hold on. She stepped back before anyone saw her. And in that instant, she stopped seeing herself as someone being helped. She saw herself as someone being carried. A burden. The exact thing she promised herself she would never become. That night, Naomi made a choice that broke her long before it reached Damien. She moved quietly, gathering only what she needed. She kissed Leah's forehead with a tenderness full of silent apologies. Then she left a letter on the kitchen counter, small, folded, and trembling around the edges. She wrote that she didn't want to destroy the life Damien had built. She wrote that she wanted Leah to remember strength, not sickness. She wrote that she refused to be a burden to anyone ever again. Then she walked away, carrying the same loneliness she had always carried, believing it was the only way she could protect the people she loved. Damien found the letter minutes later. His heartbeat didn't slow. His thoughts didn't scatter. He knew exactly where she would go, because Naomi never ran toward hope, she ran toward disappearance. He drove straight to the bus terminal. Inside, in one of the back rows, he saw her sitting alone, her posture tense, her hands gripping Leah's bracelet as though it was the only thing keeping her anchored to the moment she was trying to leave behind. He didn't ask why she left. He didn't scold her. He didn't fill the silence with reasons. He simply walked to her, sat beside her, and placed something in her hand, the old wooden bracelet she carved for him so many years ago. The one he had kept through every chapter of his life. "You're not a burden," he said quietly. The words didn't demand anything. They didn't push her. They didn't corner her into staying. They simply told the truth she was terrified to believe. Her fingers closed around the bracelet, slow and fragile, and a single tear slipped down her cheek, not out of fear. Out of the realization that someone still saw her as worth staying for. Damien stares at his phone. The screen burns, a photo of him, Naomi, and Leah. His chest tightens, not from fear, but from a protective fire. "I'll leave this office before I leave her. Damien, this is a career-ending scandal. You need to step down, now." Damien's jaw tightens. Every eye in the corporate world is on him, every whisper a blade. But he doesn't flinch. "No. I won't step back. Not from her. Not from this." He ends the call. His hand trembles, not with fear, but with a storm of determination. Naomi watches him, her heart caught between awe and worry. "Damien, the world is against us. And they'll never have you. Not while I'm standing." The scandal explodes online. Headlines flash. Social media churns. But Damien's gaze never leaves Naomi. The world is watching, but what will Damien choose when everything is on the line? Damien sits before a camera, hands clasped, eyes steady. He goes live. "I wasn't always this man. Naomi. Leah, they are my family, my truth. I won't abandon them, ever. And I won't let anyone make them feel alone." Thousands watch. Comments flood in, criticism, yes, but also empathy, understanding, hearts breaking and mending across screens. Naomi scrolls through, tears stinging her eyes. They see me. They really see me. Damien's hand finds hers. The camera catches the subtle intertwining of fingers, a quiet defiance against the chaos outside. "You're not alone. Not ever." Her chest swells with relief, a fragile hope igniting. The world outside might judge, but here, in this moment, love shields them. Naomi sits on the edge of the hospital bed, her hands trembling as she clutches the bracelet Damien gave her. Her eyes are wide, raw. What if I don't wake up? Damien kneels beside her, gripping her hands with a strength that belies the storm in his chest. His voice is calm, but every word carries the weight of an unbreakable promise. "Even if you forget who I was, I'll never forget who you are." Naomi nods, tears spilling, but determination flickers in her eyes. She reaches for a pen and scribbles a quiet letter on her bedside table, a message for him, just in case. "Always remember, me." Damien watches her, heart aching, silently vowing to carry her memory through any darkness. Hours stretch into eternity. Damien sits in the waiting room, Leah curled against him, both of them grasping for any flicker of hope. The door opens. The doctor steps forward, removing the mask, eyes meeting Damien's. "The surgery went well. She's stable." A fragile exhale escapes Damien. He holds Leah tighter, relief mingling with the tension that has gripped his every nerve. Naomi stirs. Her eyelids flutter open. The first thing she sees is the wooden bracelet, resting like a lifeline on the bedside table. "You kept your promise." Damien leans close, voice low, tender, a vow reinforced in the quiet hospital room. "I always will." Recovery begins, but healing hearts takes more than healing bodies. Naomi moves slowly around the cabin, her steps gaining confidence each day. A faint smile tugs at her lips as she stacks dishes, folds laundry, practices small routines she once took for granted. Damien moves quietly around her, fixing things she can't yet manage. He never makes a show of it, no words of praise, no eyes on her progress. Just presence, steady and unwavering. Leah giggles as she ties her little shoes, backpack on, ready for preschool. She looks up at Damien with wide, trusting eyes. "Uncle D, look. I did it." Damien's lips twitch into a subtle, private smile. He kneels, eyes locking with hers, warmth spreading quietly through the room. "You did it, kiddo." In these quiet moments, the chaos of the past fades, replaced by small victories that feel monumental. Naomi sits at the table, exhausted from her exercises. Mid-task, her eyelids droop, and her hand drifts across the table, searching unconsciously for something familiar. Damien notices. He slides the chair closer, letting their fingers meet. No words are exchanged. No explanations. Just the weight of presence, the warmth of hands clasped in quiet assurance. Time stretches. A deep exhale. Their breathing sinks, steady, natural. Every shared silence speaks louder than conversation ever could. "You're stronger than you know, and I'm right here." Naomi murmurs in her sleep, fingers tightening around his. He doesn't move, doesn't let go. In the gentle gravity of their connection, a new understanding settles. Love doesn't always shout. Sometimes it simply holds, unbroken. Leah runs up to Damien, cheeks flushed with excitement. In her small hands, she holds a crumpled drawing, carefully colored with bright, earnest strokes. "For you, Uncle D." Damien kneels, taking the paper, eyes softening as he studies it. 3 stick figures, hands joined, smiles wide, Naomi, him, and Leah. Naomi leans over his shoulder, voice quiet, almost reverent. "I think her heart just remembers what we forgot." Damien presses the drawing against his chest, his gaze lingering on Naomi. A subtle shift passes between them, something unspoken, yet profoundly felt. Belonging, once fractured, starts to settle gently around them. Their bond grows, but the past still waits, asking for a final promise. The old orphanage is transformed, not grandly, but with quiet intimacy. Light streams softly through the windows, though the focus remains entirely on them. 3 bracelets hang together, delicate and simple, a symbol of lives joined, promises kept. Leah leads the way, scattering petals along the aisle with tiny, determined hands. She pauses, looking back at Naomi and Damien, pride and joy radiating without a word. Damien takes Naomi's hand, his thumb brushing hers with gentle insistence. "We're here. Together." Naomi nods, heart full, tears threatening but held back, understanding the quiet power of what they've reclaimed. The bracelets shimmer between them, silent witnesses to their journey, the past acknowledged but no longer in control. Damien kneels before Naomi, eyes raw, voice trembling with unshielded truth. "I thought I lost everything in that blizzard. I promise again, as the man who will never let go of what matters most." Naomi's eyes glisten. She reaches for his hand, voice a fragile whisper that carries all the hope she's held on to. "I never stopped hoping." Leah slips her small hands between theirs, fingers entwining with both. Together, their hands form a circle, 3 hearts bound by unspoken vows, scars, and love that refuses to fade. Damien squeezes both of them, a silent affirmation that nothing will break this fragile unity. Back at the cabin, Damien lifts the 3 bracelets, hanging them carefully over the doorframe. Each catches the light, shimmering like a promise frozen in time. Leah steps back, eyes wide, her voice brimming with wonder. "We're a circle now. That means forever, right?" Damien bends to her level, voice soft, almost a murmur meant only for her ears. "Forever began the moment you knocked on my door." Naomi smiles, a quiet peace settling in her chest. Together, they watch the bracelets sway gently, a silent testament to the life they are building, slowly, deliberately, with every piece of their hearts entwined. Evening settles over the cabin, the kind of quiet that wraps around your chest and makes every heartbeat feel sacred. Damien leans against the doorway, eyes narrowing as a faint rustle drifts from the trees outside. He freezes, ears straining, tension threading through his calm. Naomi turns, sensing the shift, her hand brushing instinctively against Damien's. A whisper of unease passes between them, unspoken but electric. Leah's voice floats from another room, breaking the momentary silence. Damien steps toward the door, muscles coiled, protective instinct ignited. The camera lingers on the 3 bracelets, swaying gently above the frame. One last glint catches the fading light. The circle is whole, but fragile. Something unseen approaches, a shadow testing the bond they've fought so hard to reclaim. Their peace is precious, but even the strongest circle can be tested. The scene fades on the bracelets, swaying, unanswered, unresolved, leaving the story poised on the edge of what comes next.